You're the leader of Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen. Your country has a monopoly on the most important technology in the world. You've hit the jackpot, and it's all thanks to your #1 export, semiconductors. Say hello to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. TSMC makes 90% of the world's most advanced microchips. TSMC has a market cap of $458 billion, making it the 9th largest company in the world. That's more than the net worth of Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, and Calvin Marshall combined.
In this fully automated factory, the lights are kept yellow to protect the product, and the machinery is moving all around. But there are quite a few things in here we're not allowed to film, because this is seriously cutting-edge technology, so it needs to remain pretty secret.
Almost every consumer electronic on the market depends on silicon semiconductors called chips. Chips are required for automobiles, AI, servers, weapons, manufacturing machinery, and the list goes on. Without semiconductors, the world's largest companies such as Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have the cards stacked against them. Billions of dollars are switching hands. It's easy to understand how TSMC puts food on the table. Countries are feeling left out. Xi Jinping is feeling jealous on the sidelines. China and Taiwan have had a history of drama. Since Taiwan's independence is up in the air, the media has long speculated China will invade your country. Now with trillions of dollars at stake, there's an even stronger incentive for this war of words to transform into a full-scale military onslaught. Xi Jinping is ready to kill innocent people over this. Your country's sovereignty is in China's crosshairs. China manufactures the vast majority of the world's technologies. China specializes in cheap labor, not cutting-edge microchips. 90% of these chips come from your country, which they're forced to buy. Chinese factories try their best to shorten supply chains as much as possible by owning all the materials and machinery needed to make the final products. China's stuck between a rock and a hard place. They have no choice but to transfer trillions of dollars from their economy into yours to import microchips. This doesn't sit well with Xi Jinping. Beijing refuses to swallow its pride. Instead of hopping on your bandwagon, they plan to make an example out of you. Meanwhile, the rest of the world has been struggling with a global chip shortage. Demand for microchips exceeds the supply, affecting more than 169 countries. Companies are losing billions of dollars because of shortages complicating the industry. Countries are also finding it hard to produce chips outside Taiwan. The US demands 50% of the world's semiconductors, yet only manufactures 12%. Unlike America, semiconductors are your nation's bread and butter. In March 2022, the US Senate took their gloves off and ratified the CHIPS Act, a $52 billion chip deal to hedge their bets. It's not difficult to see why China wants a piece of the pie. China hopes to convert TSMC into a state-owned enterprise so that they can put a leash around your neck. Within no time, Taiwan will become a hunting ground. How did this all start? Because of the ongoing China-US trade war. The markets have been doing their worst since the 2008 mortgage crisis, and hyperinflation is rampant. The pandemic was the straw that broke the camel's back. COVID brought us fear and uncertainty, which shaped new laws in China. All of this had a domino effect, which uncovered bottlenecks in global supply chains relying on China. Nobody was able to receive Chinese imports in a timely fashion. This led to slower sales, resulting in many businesses being unable to pay back creditors. In order to honor their credit obligations, businesses started liquidating assets like stocks for quick cash. Many Fortune 500 companies chose to lay off employees and reduce wages. All of these compromises are being done to maintain attractive financial statements for shareholders and new investors. Because of the recent recession, China was exposed, and the media started to shift their focus on the CCP itself. Headline after headline, China keeps letting us down. The cat's out the bag. The knowledge of business and state intertwining in China has become mainstream, and anti-China sentiment started to grow after 2019 with the help of Trump.
Because we can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing. Coronavirus, right? Kung flu. Kung flu.
The virus originated in Wuhan, China, and that fact has fueled attacks against Chinese Canadians like Trixie Ling. She was just going for a walk when she was confronted by a young white man who called her names and then spit on her.
China's economy is on its knees as a result. Taiwan isn't having the same trade issues as China. This doesn't sit well with greedy China. They want all the world's eggs in their basket, nobody else's. In Xi Jinping's eyes, your independence stands in the way of creating the greatest legacy of any Chinese leader in history. China has come to the realization on how to turn the tables, with a monopoly on microchips. They're using the geopolitical dispute of Taiwan as an excuse to control TSMC. In their minds, communism needs to devastate your country. If democracy is off limits in Chinese territories, everything else will fall into place. Corrupt communist governments are like the mafia. The CCP can get away with behavior like fraud, executions, and even kidnappings. To add icing onto the cake, China has a seat on the UN Security Council with veto powers. The UN only recognizes China, not Taiwan. Your country isn't even allowed to participate in the UN General Assembly. This means that you can't vocalize disagreements in a diplomatic forum. The ICJ and ICC are monkeying around as well. Xi Jinping continues to commit war crimes as we speak. News coming from China is unbelievable because of state-sponsored censorship. American media companies like Twitter, Google, and Facebook are banned in China so they can control the narrative. Financial statements coming out of China are sometimes unreliable because the political environment allows widespread corruption, fraud, and bribery. Communism allows China to meddle in whichever territories they claim to own. All you have to do is look at Xinjiang or the recent crackdowns of democracy in Hong Kong. Nobody's safe. China also has it set up so foreign investors can't take money out of the country. It takes two to tango, which means you're next. TSMC is worth $450 billion and is compounding exponentially as we move forward in time. The ends justify the means. Invading you has become Beijing's modus operandi. China is carefully studying the war in Ukraine. While Ukraine is suffering, Beijing is learning from Putin's mistakes in order to get the upper hand. If we turn back the hands of time, you start to notice how Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 built up Putin's confidence to invade Ukraine in 2022. Similarly, the invasion of Taiwan will serve as preparation for Beijing to invade even more territories. There's one big difference though. Your island is far more important than Ukraine. Your economy is 5 times the size of Ukraine's. If not for your disproportionate microchip production, the world would throw you under the bus. You'd be a loser. Nobody would care about you. China obviously doesn't like your prosperity. However, the world's biggest superpower does. The United States. Why? It's because they have a stronger foothold in your politics than China. With the support of the US, you shifted from a dictatorship to a democracy in the 1970s. Trading between you and the US is through the roof. You've been stockpiling US weapons since the 1970s. Missiles, drones, fighter jets, surveillance technologies, and other equipment. Let's have a look at the total arms sales from US to Taiwan from the last 3 presidencies. The Trump administration sold around $18 billion. Obama was approximately $14 billion, and Biden has sold approximately $2.3 billion, with plans to sell more in the future. America is in love with you and is sparing no expense. All of America's values resonate with you. Your citizens have been growing stronger feelings of dislike towards mainland China. All of this was masterminded by the US, so they could divide China and control you. ADIZ stands for Air Defense Identification Zone. Lately, Beijing has been pushing your buttons by flying across your ADIZ. In 2020, Beijing flew over your ADIZ 280 times. In 2021, there were 916 Chinese excursions. This is just the tip of the iceberg. In 2022, Beijing also started firing missiles over your airspace to push you around. These were all in response to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, the first visit from a US senator in over 25 years. China's recent aggression was the last straw, and you fired back for the first time on August 30th, 2022. The world witnessed you articulate your feelings about mainland China in a timely fashion. Your relationship with the US has become so intertwined that any threat to you is considered a threat to the US directly. President Biden has a desire to upgrade your army. Recently, you received just what the doctor ordered, a newly approved $1 billion military deal with the US. You vowed to shoot down Chinese drones now that you have better weapons. American weapons. These are the same weapons that Ukraine is using against Russia. Your stockpiling isn't going unnoticed by Xi Jinping. Beijing is taking strong countermeasures to maintain their dominance over you, despite strong global objections. Militarily, China has been expanding and currently has the largest army in the world. They also have the largest naval fleet in the world. China's strengths are your weaknesses. War is waged through multiple fronts, not just missiles. China has been using dirty tricks to get the upper hand on you. Cyber warfare, spying, guerrilla tactics, agricultural warfare, the list goes on. It's even said China is preparing for space warfare and programming robots to interfere with satellite technology. The CCP is planting seeds early to build a strong foundation for a future war. Sun Tzu would be proud. Your new strategy is claiming your right to self-defense given the tension. Nonetheless, it's fearfully plausible the US and China will go to war over you. Beijing's military aggression over your airspace has encouraged an increasing number of global entities to show solidarity. Biden had this to say about the recent escalating tensions with China.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes,
You are.
that's the commitment we made.
The US is practicing military simulations on naval ships in preparations for your defense. The US is even boycotting deliveries of F-35 stealth fighter jets for their own arsenal after discovering a component manufactured in China. China could sneak in technology that could be used to spy on the US, so it's violating the federal defense acquisition rules. Economically, Biden recently ordered Nvidia to stop selling microchips to China. The US has put their foot down to stamp out China with you. One thing is for certain, regardless of who wins, there will be much bloodshed. The best way that you can prepare is to study for the worst case scenario, where China makes all the right moves. Today we're learning how China destroys you. To quote Sun Tzu's Art of War, every battle is won before it's fought. First, we look at Ukraine. The ongoing war in Ukraine makes it perfect timing for Beijing to invade for 3 reasons. 1. Russia isn't going to attack China since they both see eye to eye. 2. Ukraine's war divides your enemy's resources in half. If 2 wars are happening simultaneously in different countries, the US has to send resources to its ally Ukraine because of NATO. If you get invaded, the US is obligated to help both you and Ukraine. Timing is everything. China needs to ambush you and draw the first blood on a day when Ukraine needs their support the most. China should also ambush Japan at the same time, so Japan doesn't have an opportunity to counterattack at full capacity. If Japan's on the defensive, it gives China's navy fleets extra time to reach your western shorelines and push troops eastward into Taiwan as they reestablish your borders. If China's serious about being in the history books, they'll definitely push the nuclear button on Japan and the United States. It's possible the CCP is so secretive that all their statistics could be understated as a means of psychological warfare to give their enemies a false sense of security. Furthermore, it's possible the US is bluffing. Maybe they're afraid of China, and this whole back and forth is simply a war of words. Next, we're going to examine the bigger picture, which is how China can pull the international community's strings and force countries not to side with the US. You may be thinking, how can I lose if the US is on my side? The answer? Money. Money is power. If China can create dependencies for their exports and cheap labor, it puts them in a position to punish those who oppose them. Moscow's invasion had the world apply sanctions and trade barriers on them. Now, Russia can't accept normal payment gateways online, like Visa or MasterCard. This took a toll on Russian e-commerce, since now companies are forced to accept cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin. This is why the ruble is now garbage. With China, it's unlikely they'll receive the cold shoulder. Many countries rely on China's cheap labor and manufacturing. Beijing has been trying to collapse America's economy for some time now. How are they doing this? Through Saudi Arabia. It's because the world runs on oil. OPEC, aka the oil exporting countries of the world, are starting to accept payments for oil reserves in ruble and yuan instead of the United States dollar. We're starting to see petro yuan and petro rubles instead of just petro dollars. China and Russia are breaking bread together to compete with the US. This would threaten the United States dollar's official currency status of the world. This all originates from fractional reserve banking, the backbone of the US dollar's strength. Currency needs to be tied to some asset to determine its value as a means of exchange. Historically, this has been gold. Countries ditched the gold standard around 1970 because it allowed governments to run continual budget deficits. It also allowed easier monetary and fiscal policies to fix the economy. Remember Obama's stimulus package? The US prints money out of thin air and loves building up foreign credit so countries rely on them. Petrodollars have replaced the gold standard in the 21st century. China has noticed this and is reverse engineering the US's playbook. China has been stockpiling more gold than the US for many decades now. China's doing this hoping to make the yuan the new gold standard to add global confidence in their currency. In addition to this, if commodities start being bought by countries currently owing China money, China can force them to use yuan to repay them. This weakens the US dollar. The geography of the Belt and Road Initiative gives China access to ports and trade routes, which benefit China's relationship in times of conflict. If these countries can't repay Chinese debt traps, they'll be forced to repay China in yuan. They could also force their trading partners like Apple or Tesla to buy their exports in yuan to cripple the US. It soon becomes clear why the Belt and Road Initiative is a nightmare for the US. Debt is a form of slavery. This would invert the playing field and make China number one, not the United States. China would have the world under their leash. If you control the money, you control the world. Money truly is the root of all evil. Whoever wins this war will reshape the world. You should keep your fingers crossed because China is about to knock your socks off. Say hello to China's New World Order.